Welcome to The Advocate, a program that thrashes out all the topical issues of the day.
When you are in government, you don't see nothing wrong with whatever is happening. The moment you are out there, everything is wrong.
You can't even see many women now, and when they're there, they're not even really making a mark, and then they have an NYSC problem and this and that.
One of the reasons why we don't have more women in politics in Nigeria is for as long as political meetings continue to take place in the middle of the night.
Exactly.
Really?
Disastrous for a president
To even say
to be
he's unaware.
unaware of the chief
It's
justice.
a ploy. It could be a strategy.
That strategy was very
Backfired.
terrible strategy. Because the buck stops at your table.
Whether it's that we don't look after our cities, and quite frankly, Nigeria is becoming a very ugly place.
When you are the only one feeding the people with this news and there is nobody countering them, it becomes, the news.
Welcome to The Advocate. 5 panelists, 5 advocacies, all uniquely inspired. Today, I want to ask a straightforward but complex question. What does it mean to be Nigerian? Chuka, on the other hand, raises awareness by spotlighting sickle cell anemia. I wonder how many of us knew that Wednesday, June 19, was World Sickle Cell Day. Uche, on the other hand, is querying the benefits of distinguishing so many days as public holidays. Ekene asserts that there are no winners in the game of monopoly. Interesting. Ireti mounts a soapbox to speak on behalf of the rest of us against our treatment at the hands of the Nigerian High Commission. That's the spread, so sit back and prepare to be inspired. So, what does it mean to be Nigerian? Can I be Igbo and be Nigerian? One question I've often asked myself, am I Nigerian because I was born in Nigeria and carry a green passport? Or am I Nigerian because I'm an Igbo man and Igbo land is part of Nigeria? Because we know that Nigeria today is indeed a British invention created by the colonial British government for one reason only. It was economically expedient to administer all the fledgling protectorates as one unit, rather than several different entities. So in 1914, influenced by his wife, Lord Lugard set about to create the nation Nigeria, the country we now fondly call Niger. And our independence came 46 years later in 1960. Chief Obafemi Awolowo wrote way back in 1947 that Nigeria is not a nation, it is a mere geographical expression. There are no Nigerians in the same sense as there are English, Welsh, or French. The word Nigerian is merely a distinctive appellation to distinguish those who live within the boundaries of Nigeria from those who do not. The road to democracy and nationhood has just been as rough as the many urban streets of Lagos and indeed most parts of Nigeria, sometimes smooth, but often potholed with too many roadblocks. We have witnessed coups and counter-coups leading to a civil war that lasted 3 years, which saw millions die, and then some more coups, failed coups, and indeed sometimes phantom coups. But our current attempt at democracy has lasted 20 years since 1999. But I don't think anyone is in doubt that Nigeria today is a country in crisis. Our differences have grown and become extremely sharp, at some point cutting deep into the very fabric of the idea of nationhood. It appears that with each new election cycle, our ethnic divides grow wider and sharper, and this is added to growing economic and security challenges. And indeed, it seems that our politicians have become adept and successful, I might say, at employing ethnic sentiment as a vehicle to secure political power. It also appears that we're losing the balance between our ethnic and national consciousness, and a lot more people now resort to focusing on their primordial interests while neglecting the overall interests of Nigeria. I also worry that images from our parliament does not reflect any deliberate attempt to sew a new fabric for a united Nigeria. It is true that countries may be born by design, incident, or accident, but it behoves leaders to attempt to forge a nation out of a country. And yet, yes, it is very okay to be Igbo and still be Nigerian, just as a Welshman can be Welsh and yet be a proud Briton. The truth is, since Awolowo made the famous statement, it's been more than 70 years Nigerian leaders have had ample opportunities to build a new Nigeria, a modern multi-ethnic state that is an example of how different ethnic nationalities can coexist peacefully and meaningfully. So I ask, what does it What does it mean? What does it, or rather, what will it take for us to become a modern, united nation?
Can we all do our hair like this? I think that'll make us united. Because if there's one thing we do have in common, we all have in common, irrespective of which part you come from, is that we all do threading. I mean, it's funny, but it's true. Every, ethnic group in Nigeria do one form of threading or the other. And when you asked that question, I kept thinking about it all the time. You were when you were talking earlier. That what does it mean? What does it mean to be a Nigerian? I don't think you can actually ever truly define it in a sentence, but I think it's more like what's it called? It's not a foreboding, but there's something that you carry with you, and I think that's what makes you Nigerian. So for me, I become more Nigerian when I'm outside of Nigeria, because then I see myself as an ambassador of, and therefore I can then say I am Nigerian because, I'm also Nigerian, like I said, because of the fashion, because of the clothes, because of the culture, all of which for me is fundamentally important. So each person has to, and as I was saying to you earlier, I see myself as a custodian of my Nigerian culture and a custodian of my Yoruba culture, both of which are what makes me Ireti.
Yeah, I mean, I think she's probably agreeing with you.
Is there a Nigerian culture, really?
Yeah, I mean, again, let me just carry on from where she left off. I think we all seem to be saying, at least following on from what you said and what Ireti said, that you can have multiple identities.
Yes.
I think nobody has a problem with that. But what I put down when you were talking was that, identity really is about belonging, having a sense of belonging.
That's right.
And so I wanted to understand, when you talked about primordial interest, are you associating that with the tribalism that people are exhibiting? In which case, are you saying that people's expression of tribalism is more of a selfish thing than it is about? So you're trying to sort of use it in a divisive way rather than in a complementary way. Am I getting that right?
Did you mean it to be divisive?
I meant it to be, because that's the reality. That's the reality is that
when it's used negatively.
Oh, yeah, it's used negatively.
Rather than proudly.
Exactly.
Because it's meant to be complementary.
Yeah.
And again, I just want to agree with you that yes, a lot of times what people practice now is political identity politics in that sense.
Yes.
So they're using it against us, because anyone with a sense that really wanted the best for Nigeria would see that if you unite us under a common identity, under a common, something to defend, like what Ireti is saying, a sense that we have something to defend together, then people are more likely to push in one direction. But for some reason, it comes more naturally to politicians. Maybe it's because they're not doing what they should be doing. To play divisive politics. So to answer your question, what do we need to do? Well, we need to, again, first to our leaders, continue to hold them accountable for what they're not doing. But even we ourselves need to resist the urge to be manipulated by this kind of politics. We need to avoid all this going down to, you against us. Because
stereotypes.
It's not true.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reason why we go into this whole tribalistic mood is because it feels like there isn't enough of the national cake to go around. So when people are thinking, there's not enough to go around, suddenly it's like, let's grab what we can for us. I think the politicians definitely play on this because they don't want a lot to go around. So in order to confuse us and distract us, then they tell us that, it's just that somebody is doing, divide and conquer. Everybody's doing this for one particular group. So I want to say that, outside Nigeria, I do then see myself as a Nigerian first. But within Nigeria, I then see myself as Igbo, and then Nigerian. So that's how I see myself. There's definitely a Nigerian identity, I think, because when people meet us outside or in their own countries, they're quick to say, that's a Nigerian. And meanwhile, you're Yoruba, you're Igbo, you're Hausa, but yet there seems to be a Nigerian identity.
I think the problem is Awolowo's statement was faulty. Essentially because what he forgot to, or maybe it was too early for him to see it, but if you create a structure, it can become as if the structure happened naturally and things
if you do it properly.
And things will flow. Even if you didn't do it properly, even if you just, and I tell you, human beings are funny. We will adapt. The truth is, once you create Nigeria and set the boundaries, and we say that man is from Cameroon, the other man is, we exclude them, and immediately we set about, it's like going to boarding house. You have to belong to that closed group.
Yes, so why then are we not?
And then you form strong bonds here and there.
Yeah.
The problem is that in politics, it's destroying us in that field. It is really destroying us, and it will make inroads into other aspects of our lives.
What I want to pick up from what you said, and I think Uche also touched on it, is we need to ask. I do ask people. It's a very tough question for people to answer, but I say to them, when you wake up in the morning, do you think first as a Nigerian or as an Igbo, Hausa, Yoruba, whatever? And Uche was right. I don't think first as a Nigerian. I think first as a Yoruba girl, because that is the first language. That is the first language. That is my first. That is my first connection to being Nigerian.
Just to take on from what you said, in a sense, about the national cake not being enough. People find it easier to identify behind success. Unfortunately, Nigeria is a story of potential and not enough. So I think all it takes is for us to do something well. Even if there's a glimmer of hope, you find that people will galvanize. You know, even when it looked like we could win the World Cup, just a slight, everybody got behind the Nigerian identity. I think people just feel so frustrated by the fact that Nigeria is a story of huge potential and not enough.
Plus, if we're to unite, we must restructure. I'm sorry. If we carry on the way we are, many people will feel excluded.
Everybody feels excluded. There is no group in Nigeria that doesn't feel marginalized. Everybody's feeling marginalized.
So what's going on?
But I'll tell you what I think is good. It's funny you should ask that question, and Emeka touched on it, and we've touched on it before. Biafra.
Yeah,
I really do. I think we have to, until we actually sit down and confront the horrors that was Biafra.
Absolutely.
The fact that we killed our brothers and sisters. The fact that we weren't able to listen to each other. The fact that, what most people forget, we were manipulated by the West, actually, because the Western press was partly responsible for Biafra. Until we face all of that.
I totally agree with you.
So there's in making a new Nigeria, obviously, there's still a lot of work to be done.
Yeah. We can do it better than the politicians.
There's a lot more to be said. Sometimes the things we take for granted are the things we need to analyze. When we come back, Chuka brings another essential matter under the microscope, just after the break.
There are many unacknowledged heroes in our midst. June 19th was Sickle Cell Day. It was my late mother's birthday as well. I am pleased that there is a coincidence here. I am a supporter for Sickle Cell, even for family reasons. There have been advancements in care routes available for those with this condition. There were the dark days of just transfusions, but now even the manner of transfusions is changed. There's the expensive route of bone marrow transplant. There are herbal drugs that help. There are lifestyle choices, what to eat or drink, avoid strenuous activities, hydrate often. There are some who call for those likely to produce sicklers from intercourse to avoid themselves, to not get married when they are aware that there's a chance of giving birth to sicklers. This may not be bad advice, but I have never been on that crusade. What bothers me is that we do not take the matter of health care seriously for a condition that is prevalent here. I was happy to hear that a small medical center had been built for this purpose in my hometown of Ogwashuku. I had no idea it was being built and have not visited it. I have heard many write disparagingly about the condition, forgetting they themselves are probably terrible people in so many other ways. They are unaware of the high achievers who have the condition. Today, similar to IVF procedures, you can select eggs or sperm to ensure you do not gamble with the outcome of pregnancies. This is a great advancement, at some cost, no doubt. But it is the poor that I want to reach out to. They generally cannot care for sickler children, and some, from lack of education, do not even know the sickler status of their child until they lose them. We need small clinics dotted around the country at local government level, at the very least. Corporate giants to assist these establishments. Grants or inheritance systems to fund initiatives. We need to spread the message far and wide and not limit things to marriage counselors in churches. By the way, any child from God is an extraordinary child. Look out for more messages and follow sickle cell organizations on social media.
You know what upsets me about Nigeria is that I feel like Nigeria really follows the survival of the fittest pattern. So if you're weak, then you might as well just be done away with. You know, if you can't survive, be done away with. You know, sicklers, there are many sicklers in Nigeria. It's something like you said, we should have clinics in various places. We should have people educated about this. The one thing I only ever hear on the radio is, don't get married. you know, if you both have, is it
AS or SS?
You know, they never talk about how, okay, even if you do get married, there are ways to manage the condition, you know. So I really do have a problem with the way we go about things. The same way with disabilities, we won't provide any assistance for people with disabilities. They just basically have to get on with it. Or
so, you know. let's go to the reality. So my question is, are we saying that, because I've heard radio shows where they've been discussing, you know, the pros and cons of being, you know, having the sickle cell. Although in Nigeria they always make it like it's one word. It's a sickle cell, not sickle cell. The sickle, to have the sickle cell. And the same in the UK. We mustn't, you know, shy away from the fact that even in the UK, it's not something that's widely invested into, you know, etc., etc. Now, until I moved to Nigeria, well, even till now, I don't know my genotype. I can honestly say that to you as jurists, right? I don't know my genotype. In the UK, I don't know my blood. I'd never know my blood. I don't know my blood. What's my business? That's what the doctor is supposed to know. So my thing is, I think when you do, if I were a sickle cell sufferer, I would know. Now, we know that many marriages or couples have had to break up. Is it that it's wrong for them to, you know, they've had to separate?
Okay, break up as in
yes,
not
get married, yes.
Okay.
You know, is it that it's wrong? It's painful.
Yes, to do
but
that,
you've got to ask yourself, it's about self. Can you really handle it? Because we've got to bear in mind, it might all sound beautiful and romantic to say, go ahead. Not everybody can afford all these advancements in medicine rather. The average person will tell you, and I know many who have sickle cell, they will say to you, it is the most heart-wrenching thing. And some have decided to have an abortion for the next one. Do you understand me? To say, I'm going to have this tragic, I'm coping with one, I can't cope with another, even though they went and got married, knowing full well that, you know, they could easily carry the gene. So I think it's very much, I like but what I do like about what you're saying is, it's time to change the narrative. It is not the end of the world anymore. No, however, it is still the end of the world based on finances. It is still the end of the world for those who can't afford those advancements.
Just to come in a bit and to take from what Uche was saying, I think we could do with being a more caring society.
Yes.
Of course, if you can prevent it, it's still a personal choice whether you go ahead and marry, knowing that it's down to each individual. But ultimately, if you support people, one thing I know is with people who are facing this kind of challenge, if you give them the support they need, anything can happen. We know of one lady who she had like 3 sickle cell people. And 4. Okay. But the husband was so overwhelmed by it, he basically washed his hands off it. But this lady took the strength she had, carried them to the UK.
Typical man.
One of them, the boy, I didn't go there.
I will go there.
One of them, but as I was saying, you know, so let's not get caught carried away. But the boy now is a lawyer with a family and children, and the man now wants to know. But he was so crippled. I mean, he could barely walk. They carried him on a you know. So, but with the support,
I hope she doesn't let him know.
Each to their own. Well, but basically, the point is, with that support, the woman was strong enough to raise those children. And I think one of them was a close friend of mine. And they're doing well. Yes, one died, but, you know, reasonably well. I feel the country is as strong as its weakest person. So if we can show support, I like his advocacy because it means we all can get behind however we can.
But there's so many causes to get behind though. It's Nigeria. That's the problem with Nigeria.
We should start from But you know, for me, I've got a personal story. I'm not sure I should share this. But you know, because I was in a relationship with someone who and the whole thing we were very much in love. And you know, families were like, you know, you guys cannot go far with this, and it was a bit, it was difficult.
You found out early that.
Yeah, we did. We found out it was very difficult to have that conversation. But you know, there's merit in having that conversation, and you hear that especially from churches saying, because they bear the brunt, they see these things. They in the absence of having the clinics and the hospitals to manage this, and it's very difficult. And I know because I was there, you know,
when she's having
a crisis.
It's not something. Because the pain is
it's excruciating. It's crazy. You can't even describe it.
So it's not something, you know, I don't even know how to say it. But it's extremely difficult. So I think that, you know, for me, I will say that, you know,
couples before they get into, they should know how serious it can be and prepare themselves for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And thankfully,
and if you make that decision,
then fight it through or do it through.
But talk to us about these medical advances, though, that you were talking about.
I mean, there's the one where you literally get rid of it, which is the bone marrow transplant.
Which is, for people who don't understand what bone marrow, you take the blood out and they put in a new blood.
No, that's a transfusion.
Okay. Yeah.
The transfusion is the one where you take the blood out and put new blood in the person. You do that maybe every 3 months.
That's the stem cell?
People. No, stem cell will be the bone marrow.
Okay.
Where you take blood from another, the marrow produces
the marrow,
blood. So you're not just transfusing and changing blood every 3 months, whatever. You're literally now changing somebody's blood type.
Right.
You're putting in a marrow that will produce non-sickly cells.
Why I tend to be, and I don't want to get distracted from what you're saying, because what you're saying is let's look for ways to support people. Let's support. But I just want to, just as an alternative, why for example, when each time I was expecting a baby, they do a test, you could find out if your child was was Down syndrome.
Yes.
I would never do it because I said it won't make a difference. I'm going to have every child I want to have. Doesn't matter what disability. So I'm like that. I'm a bit of a gung-ho person. If I fell in love with someone I would marry you. And because I just say, look, this is life. You can't engineer too many things.
But it's not. This
I'm just going through it because I just
the child.
I know. I get you. I get you. Because I know a sickler. And one of the most beautiful people I know, she had a family. And at times when she's going through the crisis, she'll say to her mom, why did you have me? And the mom will look at her. The mom is like, I'll have you 20 times over. And I don't blame the mom.
Yeah, but
she's married now. She has her own son. She's going through it.
But you can't take the person that's going through the pain. It's not the parents.
They didn't choose.
Yes,
to come.
I know.
When I was pregnant with my son, we were asked, my partner and I at the time, or his dad and I were asked, they needed to have amniocentesis. That's the test.
Yes.
Amniocentesis, because they thought I was old at 32. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Thought I was old. But also, when you do that test, one of the things they do say to you is, there's a risk of miscarriage because they literally have to insert, the woman and everything. And I remember his dad and I discussing this, and I said, look, the way I see it is a child that's going to stay will not be miscarried. And that was why I went and I said, I don't believe me. I would want my child to be Down syndrome. The world is wicked enough.
So this is definitely one area we all can make a difference in. Well, so Uche tackles a matter that affects us nationally after the break.
You're watching The Advocate on Plus TV Africa. Certain things fall under the category of a waste of time. As June 12th is added to our already long list of public holidays in Nigeria, I think it is time we address our many worthless public holidays. Added to this is the competition between religions in claiming superiority or parity over the number of public holidays marked in deference to their religion. There's no doubt that the citizens are stressed by the economic and political events in the country. And ordinarily, a public holiday should provide an avenue for relaxation, for going away and leaving the routine or humdrum of everyday life. However, in our environment, it is not so. The public holiday carries a burden with it. It simply shuts down business and prevents certain important actions from taking place. The informal sector dominates the Nigerian economy. This sector depends on everyday movement to provide the next meal. As a result, anytime a public holiday is declared, they are hard hit. The booker near the office is shut down. The bus driver has fewer passengers to move. Petty traders lose income. The banks are shut down from daily operations. Sometimes on public holidays, certain essential services are withdrawn, such as doctors are not in the hospitals, particularly government hospitals. I therefore suggest that holidays which fall on weekends should not have work days added, keeping workers away from work. So, for instance, if Christmas falls on a Sunday, let Monday not be declared a public holiday. This principle should apply to all the holidays. We need to work hard to get the economy out of the woods. This is particularly true in our country that depends on government business to drive the economy. Any day government shuts its doors to business, a lot of things suffer. Discussions are stalled, payments are stalled, money does not flow. It is sad, but that is the reality of our situation.
Why are you having to state the obvious? That's what I'm thinking, because
really?
I don't know. For me, I know you may. I'm glad you have a different perspective, but let me say my own.
Right.
It seems like you're stating the obvious. So for me, it's they're selling us another dummy. Why would you have a Monday public holiday when it falls on a weekend? Are you treating us as fools? So we're just wasting time. And like you said, if our economy is not doing as well as it could do, and you have other economies that are doing better and they don't go and splurge out on public holidays, then we should take a leaf out of their own book. So really, my own is to send a message. Is to send a message to those in authority to sort of say, look, you're not enticing us with these your strange public holidays. Cut down so we can get some work done.
Okay.
Over to you.
Well, first of all, I agree with you. We have too many public holidays in this country. 29th, and they need to actually decide between the 29th and June 12th now, which is democracy, because this is the first time we're having, and I understand by next year they would have changed it, which is why they didn't do much on the 29th this year. May 29th. That's one. But however, I totally disagree with you in the sense, with the fact that if a holiday, so if Christmas falls on a Sunday, that the holiday shouldn't be on a Monday. All over the world, it's like that. All over the world, it's like that. That's not a Nigerian. Yes, that's not just a Nigerian thing. But
some holidays are
more important.
Exactly. The count is one thing. The fact that if Christmas falls on a Sunday, you can't give me what I already have. Okay, it is not your holiday to give me. Jesus, Allah, somebody already gave me that Sunday. So you have to give me. No, but it's true. That's what it's about. Now, I think what we have in Nigeria, because we have a secular society where we have to recognize both Muslim and Christian holidays. That's why we end up with so many. I know it's a lot. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's not a lot, but that's how we end up with so many holidays. And so therefore, what would you have them do?
You would have take away the Monday.
No. You can't take it, because then you're out. You're not giving the Christians what is their holiday. And Muslims will always take your 2 days. Their 2 days in the year. Christians will have their Easter, Christmas, Boxing Day, and I don't know what happened. What did Jesus do on Boxing Day that we had to have Boxing Day?
There you go. We need to scrutinize some of these
but we got that from the West, not from us.
The West is about opening your presents. Exactly. That's why they call it Boxing Day.
So maybe
to join them with all these strange things.
If Boxing Day
comes immediately after Christmas,
that's what I'm saying.
That's the point.
So that's the question.
Then what happens is that so you get Christmas on a Saturday, and then you now move it to Monday. Then you give you now have Boxing Day after.
That's what I was going to say.
So can get rid of the Boxing Day.
That's what I was going to say. So maybe what we should be advocating for is that Boxing Day has nothing to do with religion.
What?
Therefore,
okay,
why are we giving Boxing Day?
Can I say something totally different? Whether you have 40 days public holiday or 40, I don't mind. But the thing is this: I don't think it's even a question of that. Like what Uche is saying about productivity. People do not want to work, will not work.
Thank you.
That's what I was
But you're forcing those who want to work.
That's the problem.
So it's a public holiday, and a public holiday addresses. If you want to work. Nobody's stopping you.
I agree, Emeka. I totally agree.
So productivity.
And the informal markets do open.
And informal markets should open.
They open on public holidays.
That's where the major problem is.
So the payments, technology has come to our aid. You can do payments. Whether banks, even now.
Let's explain something.
Let me say this. The other thing about productivity is that even the days, the Monday to Friday that are not public holidays, how much work gets done? Even with all that.
So that's why you should make it even worse.
All that 8 to 8.
So it's that we should get better at working.
So productivity, it's a different thing. People should prioritize, do more work with the time given.
Correct.
That's one. Now, with public holiday, I think this is it. It's a compromise we have to learn to deal with. That we're a secular society, we have Christians, we have Muslims, and I'm tending towards becoming a traditionalist.
Exactly.
I want my Ahmadi or her day.
Exactly. I want my Shongo's birthday.
All right. So
because you won't get enough votes in Parliament anyway.
But clearly speaking, I think that I don't think that there are too many holidays. No. It looks that way.
No.
It looks that way.
You know why Emeka is that way? I want him to finish, and then you will understand why he's saying that.
I don't think there are too many holidays. To be honest, I don't think so. I think the thing is that we are not a very productive society.
Society, full stop.
So we tend to take advantage. So there's this almost instant urge to take advantage of any seeming holiday.
Like inauguration day was a holiday.
So, but I don't think that if you want to work. If I run a business,
No, but can I come in on this? If you want to work, okay.
Please do.
For instance, I obviously work outside this, and if you're a company and you've taken out a loan, for instance, or let's not say a loan, maybe a bank guarantee or something like that, or a facility, and then you need to pay this money back in a certain time. Now, if we're having a public holiday, chances are you're not gonna. How do I explain it? My company sells bitumen. So the bitumen first has to get to the
advertising.
Sorry, but I just have to explain this.
To explain why it affects you.
So first we have to sell the bitumen. Bitumen has to get to to the location. Public holidays affect that. So like the last business we did, the vehicle, the truck got to the location, but they couldn't discharge. Why couldn't they discharge? Public holiday. So that's 1 day of a truck sitting there doing nothing. Demurrage is paid.
People don't want to work.
But I'm telling you what the reality is right around. On top of that, on a facility, we owed interest. Now, those 2 days in the middle of the week, we were not expecting those 2 days.
Why will the bank charge you on a public holiday?
Ask them.
Public holidays are not the problem. It's that we're not working. And because we don't work hard, we are happy to see holidays. Come on, somebody who doesn't like to work hard. We also find the holiday very attractive.
Well,
every one of us here,
but we don't work.
probably, even if we have to commute to work, we don't take public transport, we don't spend hours in traffic trying to get home. So those holidays that you don't think is important is actually critically important for people who spend 5 hours in traffic. They leave their home at 4 a.m. to be able to get to work at 8, and they're all sleeping in the office before they start work. That's one. Number two is, I get why Emeka is saying that, because those of us who work from home, there's no holiday. Every day is a work day, because if you don't work, no one's going to pay you. Now, where you talk about the banks, come on. You do know, the average banker in Nigeria, the average banking officer, whatever in Nigeria, they're working 12, 16-hour days. Literally. They need that break. That's why so many people suffer from breakdowns, etc., and high blood pressure. I think the stress of this country, the stress of this country makes it important.
I like siesta. I love siesta.
So and they're still more productive.
Yes.
So if you take the average 1.5 hours or 2 hours, and 1.5 or 2 hours of siestas, the average typical French,
correct.
But you add it into a year. Is that not more than how many public holidays?
But we just need to be more productive. Missing, which was part of what I was saying here, was the people that need to make a living every single day. You're taking away their income. You know, whenever you have a public holiday, like I mentioned, the booker.
But why didn't you plan? Why didn't you plan? That's what I was going to say, actually. As a company. No, as a company. Don't forget the bookers. The bookers
okay, no, go on.
As a company, why didn't you plan? Because the one thing we do know is that there are going to be certain public holidays. You plan for those holidays.
You can't.
You would have known.
It is very, very difficult to plan in my business because there's so many moving parts. Many. So even just to talk about delivery, you've got to wait until there's a truck available. If the truck is not available on the day you plan, you take the truck available on the day it is available. So when it was finally available, there was a public holiday. I think in my industry kind of like works out like that.
So there's this ultra dependence on government. So even though we have 70% of our economy runs informally, yet that entire 70% is dependent. So I don't understand how that works. I think if you're dependent on it, then there's a problem.
Oh, well, not only do we value your time, we value your feedback. Time to hear from you. In response to the advocacy on Zamfara, Graced One screams, restructuring is an absolute necessity. Yes, I agree with you. I cannot emphasize this enough. Many states are broke and unproductive, yet rich in mineral resources. They cannot utilize their resources because these resources are the exclusive rights of the federal government. So individuals resort to illegal activities like what is going on in Zamfara. The solution is to restructure to federalism on the basis of regionalism. Joseph Sunday says on whether we get the leaders we deserve. What about other past government officials in Nigeria? You are anti-Buhari and APC government. You want to say you don't know how many governors that were jailed at home and abroad during the PDP government? What happened to Alamesia, Lucky Bemidion, and many others? But you only mention Ibori? Sultan of Glory says on the same issue, the problem is that Nigerians worship wealth and riches. Things will not change until the people start asking their leaders how they got their wealth. Things will only change the day citizens wake up to the fact that power and absolute power belongs to the people and not the government. When people do not demand for their elected leaders, from their elected leaders, but keep worshipping the people that they elect to serve them, things will only get worse. Thank you. Keep sending us your thoughts on our social media platforms on Facebook, Plus TV Africa, #TheAdvocateNG, or on Twitter and Instagram at Plus TV Africa, #TheAdvocateNG. And remember, to catch up with the previous broadcasts, go to www.plustvafrica.com. Time to go on a brief break, and when we return, Ekene attempts to rewrite the rules of the game of Monopoly.
There's such a thing as shooting yourself in the foot. Certainly this expression comes to mind when I think about my topic, which I've titled, There Are No Winners in the Game of Monopoly. Some of us are all too familiar with the game of Monopoly, where the object is to buy as much real estate as possible and cripple the other players financially. Hence, you become the winner. In real life, though, this game plan means that everyone is a loser. Most developed countries know this and put laws in place to counteract the human tendency to muscle out the competition and to essentially monopolize commercial opportunities, political space, education, you name it. However, in Nigeria, we see attitudes and practices of monopoly go unchecked, to all our detriments. We see it in our practice of tribalism, where one tribe wants to dominate the political space as though leaders could only come from one part of Nigeria. We celebrate Democracy Day whilst exemplifying the very antithesis of democracy. We see it in our practice of business, where a handful of moguls are left unrestrained, thereby suffocating the free market and stifling competition, which is the oxygen of organic growth and progress. Insofar as we restrict the greatness of others by unfairly favoring one side over another, even if that side is us, to that extent we're enemies of progress and enemies of the state. We're such hypocrites. Or are we so short-sighted? None of us would want to be operated on by a doctor whose main qualification is that she's from our village or that he's a son of some rich man. And yet, we habitually endorse such appointments and foist them on the rest of society. What are we afraid of? Surely, at the peak of the mountain, there's oxygen enough for all of us. If merit-based productivity is handcuffed, then we as a people are doomed to mediocrity at best. Ultimately, it tends towards a downward spiral of degeneration and a cataclysm. It's soul-destroying at its essence because it severs the individual from the umbilical cord of hope, where the individual born into a certain society could have hoped that with hard work and an application of their talents, they could make significant contributions to nationhood. The practice of monopoly tells them that no matter what they do, power ultimately lies in the hands of an undeserving few. Crushing. Doubtless, we cannot and must not go on like this. We must begin today to foster social ecosystems of true competitiveness and meritocracy in our homes, our schools, places of work and business, and of course, in our corridors of power. We must impartially stand against monopolistic practices, except we build a nation where anybody and everybody can be winners. We are setting the stage for a situation whereby ultimately we all will end up as losers.
Can I say something?
Please say it.
That's why you're here.
Yeah. You know, as you're saying this,
Wow, what's going on? You're
some deep thoughts.
He's
some deep thoughts.
Yeah.
I'm having that. Okay, so this is it for me. I think some things, because there's a conflict in that thing when you say meritocracy. Because someone gets to do something very well, they get rewarded. The nature, the system rewards them for that, their efficiency, and so there's this the talent, and they just keep growing and growing and growing. We see it in big businesses like Amazon or Google. They get to the point where they're just huge.
Dominate.
Okay. Yeah. Because that's the essence of
growth.
Yeah.
The reward system.
The reward system for being good at what you do. Does that mean, and because that discussion is going on even in America, where regulators are saying, well, no, it's time we need to break you guys up. But on a more individual basis, if a certain group of people have this innate talent to be good at something, and even if it's power, even if it's a game of power, okay, and they're so good at it, and then they become dominant, should we therefore say we should break them up?
No. Listen to what I'm saying. Please let me jump in quickly.
Okay.
Yeah, go on.
Clearly, I'm not saying that. I'm saying if they're good at it, let them do it. But what you find is that they're not good at it. They're just holding on to it. Because if they were serving us and they were serving us well, who would complain? Keep serving. But you find that the wrong people, that's why I mentioned things like nepotism and things, and tribalism. You're just putting them there. That's why I talked about the doctor who is operating on you. That is just because. If that person could do it, even if it's one race, keep doing it. We'll give it to you. We'll play music, whatever is our strength, and you continue. Yeah. But you're not good at it, and you're holding on to it. So we're all suffering.
Okay. I've got to ask a question about this. Yeah. We've had this conversation about nepotism before. I think, Uche, you brought it up with regards to Buhari and his, that woman. The Buhari.
Forgotten the name.
And I still ask a question, the same question, which I don't think was answered that day. And I'm inclined to agree with Emeka on one hand. However, I do also understand what you're saying about the fact that when a company or an individual becomes so big to the point where they're beginning to lord it and almost rule our lives, the lives of the citizen, like Facebook, yes, that's why you do have monopoly regulations, etc. Sectors, and they have to be curbed, because we can't all be owned by Apple, for instance. That's why I don't have one of those phones. But going back, when we talk about nepotism, and we have to look at it within the Nigeria, the country we exist in. I put it to you that day, and I'm putting it to you now. If I am your sister, and just because you're in a position, and I happen to be the best person for that job, do you not think I should get it?
You get it.
You can
just
perform.
But then you would then allow me. But that's the thing. You would then be accused of nepotism.
No, but see, I'll say what I just said to Emeka. As long as you're doing the job well, as long as people can see that you're there because of your qualifications,
it would still be accused of nepotism. The fact that you guys are sisters, you could be accused of nepotism.
Yeah, but okay, let me put it like this. The issues of conflicts of interest people have to declare.
That's a different
No, it's not quite different. Let me land the point. Let me land the point in response to Ireti so that Uche can talk. People declare it most times just to say, look, I have conflicting. Once it's transparent, then everybody is open to see when it influences your choices adversely. So you declare your nepotism. We watch her. If she doesn't perform well or he doesn't, then we know that's why she's there. But if you're doing well, please be everybody's brother. As long as you put the best person.
I don't know whether you guys were so generous to Buhari at the time.
Yeah, so, what I have to contribute is that basically I think a lot of the things we're saying, because we're in Nigeria, many things will not work the way we're thinking about it. So when you're talking about monopolies, even the monopolies in Nigeria don't arise because you're the best, but again, because of connections. Yeah. So it's a bit of a problem where even that word you're trying to use is not correct anymore. Because I don't want to name names, but there are some very big players in certain industries, and they are not better than anybody else. They've not proved that they are, but they've been placed there.
Yeah.
And that's that. So our society is just so against the norm that it's very difficult for us to apply economic principles and things to Nigeria. And that's why I keep saying that I don't know how the World Bank works with us, because the data we have is fake. It's complete because it's based on there's no foundation.
Yeah, no consistency.
So it's just floating in the air, so anything can happen.
I mean, part of what also inspired me to bring this topic was I was doing a report and I came across this shoemaker. And this young man, he found his calling in that he learned to make shoes because he was playing football with slippers. His mom wouldn't repair it. So he developed a skill for repairing his own shoes and making shoes. And now he's gotten a grant from the Bank of Industry. And so he's doing something he loves. And he feels like he has something he can put towards, Nigeria. And if people encourage people like that to just shine in the area of strength, despite what the government is doing, people will still feel like they're making some
But do you not
headway.
think that people are encouraging him?
No, people are, but I'm saying if we function like that across Nigeria, even if the government was doing what they're doing, you find that people
I think we're doing a disservice to ourselves as a people, because I think if there's one thing that I've noticed is that once, if a Nigerian knows, like a lot of us wear made in Nigeria these days, shoes, clothes. In fact, the English, or do you say the overseas clothes hardly sell, right down to our music. And I think because we've become Nigeria proud from the time when, GJ and, halfway through his time and they started to promote Nigeria, and Hollywood and everything, we now proudly support our own. So I think we do that, and I think we do that irrespective of government. I think the people that you're probably referring to are the big wigs, like Chuka was saying, the conglomerates who have held us all to, what's the word? Ransom, and they've captivated. And it's true. What's the name? The Stanbic Bank guy.
I didn't want to name anybody.
Peter said, no, he made a speech the other day.
Yeah,
no.
Beautiful speech.
We must go back to that speech. Did you see it?
I saw it.
He made a speech the other day, and it was beautiful. It went viral.
Aliko and I go back a long way. He's done phenomenally well. About 2 decades, done phenomenally well. Jim, Mike Adenuga and co. Let me tell you what they all have in common. They are all very combative personalities. Some of us too are combative enough, so people know what's in regulation. Now let me continue, because those we are destroying are the 22-year-old entrepreneurs, the 25-year-old entrepreneurs. This economy is rigged against the youth, and it's not going to grow. When Aliko and I were 30, we were allowed to grow. Today, we're killing the youth from growing.
Yeah, no, thank you for reminding me of that. That was a good one.
Yeah.
Well, ultimately, if Nigeria prospers, we all prosper, Abi. Ireti represents the citizens in the case against Nigerian embassies after the break.
You're watching The Advocate on Plus TV Africa. Time to be the people's advocate. Anyone who has lived in diaspora would testify to the antagonizing and frustrating process of every Nigerian consulate across the globe. So what's the purpose of a consular? It's simple. The basic function of an embassy is to represent, assist, and protect citizens of the home country who are either domiciled or visiting the host country. However, in the case of the Nigerian High Commission, it could be argued that neither the staff nor senior management has ever read such a memo. One could even go as far as to ask if they have even ever heard of such a responsibility, let alone equipped with the right training to serve the citizens to the best of their ability. This brings me to the current trending subject of 32-year-old Jeffrey Iwohime. According to the NHC, Mr. Iwohime had applied to the Mission for Passport Services. The passport had been ready since the 6th of June. A statement by the Controller General of Immigration UK, Mamadou Babandede, read, and I quote, "He arrived late to collect his passport and was told by the security that the mission had closed for the day. He went about destroying Nigeria's diplomatic vehicles with thousands of taxpayers' money." In her follow-up statement, Senior Special Advisor to the President on Diasporic Affairs, Mrs. Abike Dabiri-Erewa, called the action of Mr. Iwohime, and I quote, "unpatriotic and unconscionable act of indiscipline," close quote. Mrs. Dabiri-Erewa's condemnation of Mr. Iwohime did not go down well with Nigerians both at home and abroad. While many do not condone Mr. Iwohime's act of violence and destruction, they, however, empathize and sympathize with him. By recounting their personal experience at different Nigerian missions in several countries, many connected with Mr. Iwohime's frustration and anger and subsequent irrational behavior.
You come here and how do they treat you? There's no courtesy. They don't even treat you like you're humans. They just treat you like you're animals. And you're like, I am human. I deserve you. All you had to do 2 days ago was put something on the internet. People could have canceled their flight. This $300 I spent, I don't know where I'm going to get the money to come back. And I have to. I'm not Canadian yet. But the moment I become Canadian, I am burning this passport.
Suffice it to say that I am yet to read a single positive anecdote by anyone who has had to seek the services of our compatriots employed to serve us abroad. Mr. Ewohime's behavior is certainly unacceptable. It does, however, highlight the urgent, immediate need for a total overhaul of the practice, process, procedure, structure, and most importantly, the mindset of the Nigerian missions abroad. Which then begs the question to Mrs. Abike Dabiri Erewa. While we agree with your condemnation of Mr. Ewohime's destructive actions, what corrective measures do you plan to put in place to ensure such incidents do not reoccur? It is said that when one finger points forward, the remaining 4 points to self. So how do you intend to turn decades of virulent narratives to tales of pleasantries by the same taxpayers who paid for the vehicles that were destroyed by Mr. Ewohime?
I think let's publicly shame all the ministers of external affairs we have had in this country. Yeah. Let's shame Abike Dabiri and anybody who has had her kind of job in the past, because Nigerian embassies abroad are a disgrace. They are a total, I mean, they are like, let's not use the word zoo in a derogatory manner, but that's what they are. They are the most terrible places you could go to. You are transported to a land far away from the town you are actually in. Nobody should ever have to deal with the Nigerian embassy anywhere. Nobody. But we know we have to anyway because they are consular services. But quite frankly, I would try hard never to have anything with any embassy abroad of Nigeria. And I think it's under the jurisdiction of our foreign minister. Yes. And quite frankly, he should be ashamed of himself because he travels abroad, meets with ambassadors, and has nothing to say to them. He can't even tell them that they are running, like, it's like a madhouse. It's unbelievable. It's like they don't even spend a kobo there. I'm not sure, I don't think they spend any money.
Well, they don't. I can tell you that one for
free. The money is being siphoned because I'm sure they budget something.
Now,
I don't think they spend the budget.
Let me even explain to you what happens, because I had to find out when I had to make use of our services in South Africa, first of all. You know, and I mean, it was like, really, let's call it a zoo. It is a zoo. Anyway, so I started to ask questions because I really didn't understand why, you know, on the outside, it looks like a decent building. Then you go inside and then you know it's like you're now in Nigeria. Sorry.
I tried to avoid saying, notice that I tried to avoid saying, you know, you're in Nigeria. So I said you're transported to another land.
South Africa or Nigeria within the UK. Anyway, you go in, customer service is nil. They sometimes don't even have the materials that you want, etc. And they don't even talk to you nicely. I think it's about the value that is placed, you know, that our government places on us. They don't value us much. Otherwise, I think they would spend the money. Secondly, these people they send abroad, what I discovered, because I really had to do some investigation, was that they will send you abroad, but they don't really pay you.
Train you.
Yeah, not even, they don't really pay them any real money. They're supposed to solicit or get money, from
the workers at the embassy,
from people that come in to get passports and so on. Yes, this is what I was told. It was inside information. Yeah. So really, that's
allegedly.
Yeah. All right.
Come in and say, just to give maybe another perspective. You know, most consular services tend to be a bit. What's the word I'm looking for? Where they make you jump hoops, unnecessary hoops. Because even the British embassy here, you know, because I feel, again, back to my topic, it's a bit of a monopoly. You're not going to go anywhere else. You have to come through them. So they can be your gaff for the day. But the thing that we don't have, like you say, is the customer service. But what I found when I went to the embassy in the UK is that the people one-on-one actually very nice, you know, because they saw my plight. We had come very early. They were carrying my children for me. They were really helping. But in terms of the system, it's so confused that they are not able to even help you, which reminds me of something I saw the other day driving along Maryland. There's this road traffic official. He was overwhelmed. People, he had impounded one car, the woman was grabbing him, now they were pleading. He didn't know what to do. So I feel that they need guidance, they need training, you need to think through what are some of these situations that could happen. People could be irate with you. How do you handle them? Because yes, that guy has an anger problem and we don't support him. But it's possible if someone was trained to handle him, you know, for him to come back and tell him it's closed, you send him here. The lady we watched on video was beside, she was crying because she'd spent $300 or whatever to get from, and she didn't know what she was going to do now. You're sending her away. So there must be some pastoral care.
I think I want Emeka to go before I kind of come in.
I you know, thankfully I've not had
to deal with.
I've not had to deal with
your homeboy.
And in instances where I've dealt with them, I dealt with them, you know, maybe because then I was also in public service, so I dealt with them on some level, and they've been helpful. But I've heard stories. Very recently, a friend of mine was coming from Paris, and she had to go through. She broke down. She said she broke down in the embassy and was begging and pleading.
My sister too broke down in the embassy.
So the stories you hear reflect the same type of system or lack of a system thereof that we find in Nigeria. Yeah. It's the same process or lack of it. And I think that, you know, it calls for the missions to be adequately funded.
I agree with that.
Your topic earlier on was, what is a Nigerian?
Yeah.
That's one of it. You know, before you go to the consulate, I keep saying, are we not the government, we're the citizens, we're the government. In Nigeria alone, just right here, have you tried it? The minute you acknowledge a security guard, he suddenly gets. If you walk past him, he's like, good afternoon, ma. But if you acknowledge him, almost there's this kind of puffiness that comes up, and that is part of what I think happens when you get to this consulate. So you carry the Nigerianness because they are Nigerian. They also suffer all the same issues that we have. They have the same complaints about back home. Some of them may not even be able to go back home, to be honest with you, because they're safely employed in there. And I think you're right, and Uche is right, and Ekene is right in the sense that we have to talk about the training. But my thing is, before, and I think, Ekene, you and I had this discussion already, I think before you train somebody, we as a people do not have, we're not a service, we're not a service-orientated culture.
Naturally.
So therefore, everybody's king, everybody's from a village, everybody now my papa and all that stuff. And that mentality, it's part of what we have. But I say, I'm going to close on what Chuka said. Like, we are calling, enough is enough. This is decades. There's actually no excuse anymore. Decades.
There's no excuse.
There's no excuse anymore.
And really, just to say that.
And he's one more person waiting to happen.
One of the missions has to be a shining example of how a mission should and I've not seen any of it.
Yeah, we'll keep advocating, as Ekene says. It's all about speaking up for ourselves. As you join your voices to ours, keep your comments coming in on our social media platforms, on Facebook, Plus TV Africa, #TheAdvocateNG, or on Twitter and Instagram at Plus TV Africa, #TheAdvocateNG. Let's keep advocating for a better society. As Ekene says, bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Especially there's a video that's been circulating and they always go and pull out that video. But I know that things are no longer the same thing. Even with you here, I have come, I have seen it, but I'd like you to talk to them by yourself. Tell them what the situation is right now.
Thank you very much for your very kind observation. The video that you're talking about was recorded as far back as 2013. That was quite some time ago. It was an unfortunate incident. But I think we've come a long way since then. Our process is very simple and straightforward. Apply online, pay online, and you're able to go through the process without any kind of hitch. Once you come to the Nigerian High Commission in Ottawa here, you're guaranteed getting your passport the same day.
Welcome to The Advocate, a program that thrashes out all the topical issues of the day.
When you are in government, you don't see nothing wrong with whatever is happening. The moment you are out there, everything is wrong.
You can't even see many women now, and when they're there, they're not even really making a mark, and then they have an NYSC problem and this and that.
One of the reasons why we don't have more women in politics in Nigeria is for as long as political meetings
continue to take place in the middle of the night.
Exactly.
Really disastrous for a president
to even say
be unaware of the chief
It's
justice.
a ploy. It could be a strategy.
That strategy was
very
terrible strategy. Because the buck stops at your table.
Whether it's that we don't look after our cities, and quite frankly, Nigeria is becoming a very ugly place.
When you are the only one feeding the people with this news, and there is nobody countering them, it becomes, the news.